Nope. Gonna be on a cloud somewhere. Next to them. So here I am, and here you are. All we have to do is show. So before you joined, I was just noticing that my body feels quite tired. And then I was curious as well. I was inviting the Holy Spirit, and I was curious, like, I wonder how I'll feel after the meeting, because I usually feel quite more enlivened after having these types of conversations. Um, that was just a little curious too. So my dad is in the hospital at the moment, and he's been there for a long time, but it's kind of every now and again. Because last night he was worse, I feel like that it stirs up a bit of emotional stuff. So I think that's what my tiredness is, but feeling a bit emotional because if he's not getting out, I'd be very surprised if he gets out, but he won't be getting out.
What's it like for you with the coming and going? Like I'm sure you're thinking about him a lot,
Mm,
and there's a there's something I'm trying to learn about,
mm,
listening to my heart, my intuition. And so I'm
mm,
I'm trying to ask when it's time to go, when it's time for you to get up and leave, if it's not driven by your schedule,
yeah,
is there something in you that
like to leave
that kind
him.
of like, yeah, it's like, okay, visit's over. There's
No,
a certain letting go in there and so on. So,
it's very just natural. Like,
okay.
and I also, even though I'm a bit like emotional about him passing away, which is probably just natural, I think, because he's my dad. But mm, I don't know, like when I'm there, it's just you don't be thinking about that kind of thing. Like maybe if he's about to die any minute and I had to leave, like if like he's about to die and then you're leaving, but I'd still leave, like if I needed to. I don't know. It's not really something
Sure.
I think about. I just kind of don't think about it and just go with the flow because there's a certain type of energy in any scenario, and you just kind of know when it's time to leave. So he would often be getting tired, or maybe he also sometimes feels a bit awkward in just being together and not talking. So sometimes he's like, okay, go on, you can go now. He says stuff
Mm,
like that. And then
mm,
he'd be tired and all that as well. So it's just kind of natural. But like every time I do say goodbye, like you feel like, well, it depends. Like last night when I was saying goodbye, for example, it feels a bit more sad because he's a bit more deteriorated.
mm,
Yeah, so you feel a bit like, oh,
mm. You had described him as someone who hadn't taken really exceptionally good care of himself for a long time.
yeah, I would say in any way.
Mm,
Mentally, physically, spiritually. Although you don't
mm,
really know what's going on with someone else, like inside, but yeah.
mm.
And then the other day he like wished I was like, oh yeah, he still is buying lotto tickets. And I was like, okay, I'm glad to see you still have the will to win. And I was like, what would you do if you won? It was like 80 million euro on Euro Million. So what would you do if you win? And he said, go back in time. So obviously you can't go back in time. And I was like, no. And I probably put words in his mouth a bit because he actually could have meant anything by that. But I was like, oh, and not smoke. And he was like, yeah. He said, yeah. And like it seemed like it was that. But then afterwards, I was thinking, God, I really shouldn't have said anything because he could have meant anything. He could have meant many things. And maybe he would have made many things change a lot of things. But of
Mm,
course, if your body is very sick, then, and it's from all the things you did in your life, you would go back in time probably and change
sure,
it.
sure.
Mhm.
Mm.
So, what shall we talk about today?
Well, we're settling back in to being here in Lagos again. We were in the
Yeah.
States for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and what's coming is, a sense of ease, a lot of gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
um, wanting, just, wanting things to be different, and even in some ways, feeling irritated. Just those things don't
Mm-hmm.
don't quite have the purchase. They don't, they
Yeah.
don't quite have the grip they used to have.
Yeah.
And it feels fortunate. I mean, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's hot here, but all the physical conditions aside, I'm feeling like
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a real sense of um, willingness to
Mm-hmm.
come to rest. And
Yeah.
the thought of sharing some of that with you, and just whether being together or not, the idea
Mm-hmm.
of being at rest and at ease is just very, very compelling.
Yeah. I've also that's been in my awareness as well about being at rest and at ease and slowing down, because Eshan was on a camp this week and I was really feeling like, oh yeah, it's great, I'll get a lot of rest. But I notice I sometimes keep myself busy. It's not that I'm
Mm,
doing things that don't need to be done necessarily, but they don't need to be done straight away because I think really nothing needs to be done straight away.
mm,
Like there's always time for rest, but we make
mm,
excuses that there's no
mm,
time to rest. And by resting, not just, and I think that's what you mean as well, not just physical rest, because you get physical rest if you lie down and watch TV, but that's not really the same kind of rest. Like you still don't really feel rested. So I think it's like resting and doing nothing. And these are the words that's coming to me now, but like kind of allowing the divine to work in you, and you don't have to do anything for that. You're just like you said, the word willingness. So it's a willingness to be open and to allow, you could say, like allow nothing to happen. So that's it, allow nothing to happen and not really want anything to happen. But if the divine wills anything to happen in your being, it can happen much more. I mean, that's not really true. The divine can do anything, but there's a sense that in quietude, when we're quiet and not engaging in anything else, that the divine can work in our being much easier. And maybe it's really just that we notice it or we're a bit attuned to the movements of the spirit in our being, I think. And even if it's just like here, it might be just like if I quieten down. Sometimes it's just like that I actually am aware of what's happening in my being, so it might not even be necessarily spiritually or soul inclined, but like you really notice what's under the surface, which is kind of spiritual in a way because you're noticing it with the bigger part of yourself. That is that I don't know about words and all, but it's like your heart. You're seeing everything with your heart. Um, and just kind of acknowledging what's here. And I mean, we don't have to make any conclusions about what's here, but something feels good about that, I think. So even if you feel like I was saying, I feel kind of like something feels kind of emotional today. Um, and my mind isn't really emotional, to be honest. Like, my thoughts aren't emotional. It's really a kind of in my body feeling. Um,
mm.
mm,
There's something about letting go versus hanging on, right? So that the hanging on is like wanting to control. It's like, yes, I can just rest, but well, not until
yeah,
I've done these 8 things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it's just like noticing it, or it
Mm,
seems to be like you just we just kind of have to bring attention to that. Like we notice, okay, I have to do these 8 things, but actually I don't think even think you need to think about that. So the kind of sense comes, I need to do these 8 things, and you kind of feel some energy. But you don't need to think about it to know that you don't need to do those 8 things. I really feel like some part of you just kind of attunes to your heart or something and realizes that you don't need to do those 8 things. Maybe it's like an inner pull, to like just rest and you don't need to do those 8 things. Sometimes maybe you do. Or maybe you might need to do one of them, but you can do it later. Or you might need to do one of them now, but you really don't need to do all the things straight away. Because you'll be
Mm.
doing things the whole time. There's always something to do. Like, and it's not that important. Like I do feel like it's more important, most important to attend to yourself. And
Mm.
like you say, rest. I like the word rest. But I have been thinking about this a little bit, not really thinking about it. It's kind of like, well, it is. It's like, do you ever have like thoughts that are playing out in the distance or something? So it's not like a very um active thinking thought. It's like in the background or something, or maybe it's a type of a contemplation. So I have this, so I don't know what the answer is, but or if there's an answer. But like, so Mika is away at the moment on a Vipassana retreat.
Oh, good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, so what that is it's just, you could say a lot about what it is, but let's say superficially. What is you're sitting, you're resting, you're bringing your attention to your sensations and everything. And I'm sure, like I've done it twice, so I know there is benefit in it, and I also had kind of benefit in it, but I'm also not drawn to it. So the contemplation was kind of about, we're drawn to rest and feel physical rest, like ease in our body. And when we sit to meditate, everything settles down. But like, is that really spiritual growth? Really? Because there's something in me that says it's not really, or I would question it, like, so we imagine or we have this story. And I don't think it's opposed to it. And I definitely think it's in support of. Um, Well, I think there's much more to, like, let's say, the growth of the soul than the things being at ease in our body, even like our nervous system being calm. Of course, it does create a kind of an openness, but I do feel you could be in a very open state. And if your soul isn't moving in I don't know about the word soul enough, but like we can't make the spiritual growth happen, but we can probably be aligned with it, you know. And I don't know, like I don't really think you need that. I think it's helpful. It seems to be helpful, but to be honest, I think somebody could be in absolute turmoil in their being, but their soul could be very much like, I don't know, what to say. Their soul could be very much pulled towards and magnetized, let's say, toward God. And they could be very much a part of them, very much in alignment with that, and they can feel that and experience that. Um, so we don't really have to put everything in different boxes, this and this. I'm not saying it's better than that, like this is better than that, but because everything blends together, really, at the end. But if I had to pick, if I had to pick between being completely at ease and peaceful and open, or being in complete turmoil and knowing that I was being pulled to God, and like it's not just like if you're being pulled, then God is included. God is doing the pulling really, and you're surrendering. And even if everything was in complete turmoil, emotions all over the place, feeling terrible, everything in your life in disarray. If you had to pick between them, I would pick that one.
Mm.
Um, Well, maybe that's just a kind of a personal thing as well. But I don't think you do have to pick, you know, and not even think like, I mean, I don't get the sense. I don't really think you have to pick, but it's just a kind of a contemplation because it seems like there's a lot of that in the world, like being drawn to um looking for like peace. Like I want it as an experience, which I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, it's not wrong. Like it's right even. Um, well, I feel like it's very just there's a lot more, maybe.
Hmm.
But I think.
No, there definitely is a lot more. Um,
Yeah.
the the story I have
Hmm.
about Vipassana, it's just something that someone told me a long time
Hmm.
ago, and that is that it's Buddha's method.
Yeah.
So you're definitely in Buddha's footsteps,
Yeah.
and that's to me that's just a gorgeous feeling. But there is
Yeah.
a certain contrivance
Hmm.
about leaving everything behind for, yes, a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
to go and sit quietly. And yeah, like you say,
Yeah.
it's not bad in itself, but
Hmm.
that your current challenge is, how do I remain in my heart in the
Hmm.
face of,
Yeah.
watching a parent suffer, and
Yeah.
towards the latter stages there.
Yeah. I suppose that's why maybe the contemplation comes. It's like because if there's somebody close to you doing something totally different, you know, and like I'm not drawn towards that at all. Not at all because I am drawn towards sitting quietly. But like I don't feel like I have the time for like 10 days of just like sitting. And I don't even, it's not that I don't even have the time because I do feel that you can make the time if you're drawn to that. But it's like, I don't even feel that it's the best thing to do
Mm,
spiritually. It's not that it's bad. It's probably a good thing to do if that's what you're called to do. But like for me, I suppose and where I'm at, I don't feel like it's the best thing to do. And I
mm.
don't even do what I think is the best thing to do. Which is unfortunate. I do it a little bit like very slowly. I do things very slowly and I just my how I get away with that in myself is also like just trusting, like trusting the because I can feel like pulled to do certain things, and I might do them, but I don't like throw myself in. So I just kind of trust the unfolding, I suppose, of life. Because you have your family life, which is important as well. I don't feel like it's not important. I know some people historically have abandoned their families and all in pursuit of spiritual things.
Like
Um,
Buddha.
yeah, exactly, like Buddha and even like Papaji and all, didn't he? Well, I think that maybe his
Ram,
kids were grown up already.
no, Ramana sent him home. It was during World War II, and
Yeah,
Ramana
he
said,
sent him home.
you can't be here anymore. You have to go be with your family."
Yeah, that's really good. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so to just kind of it's always amazing, like when you hear stories of people who like fully throw themselves into spirituality and they spend so much time doing this and that. But I don't. I think I do use those as inspirations, and they do inspire me and motivate me. But I also there could be like a bit of laziness because I'm human, but I'm very forgiving of myself. I try to be. And I do think we should be forgiving of ourselves, but not like maybe not too much.
Mm.
I feel like I'm pretty like normal. Do you know, like I feel like there's a meaning that I feel like there's probably a lot of people like me. In the sense that, we maybe don't like I do spiritual practice now. But like so I just think it's good we don't have to make ourselves feel bad about it. To just like trust the slow unfolding.
Mm.
And like maybe like I could pray for like 4 hours a day, but I don't. Like I only pray for one or whatever it is. So it's
Mm.
okay.
Mm. You're you're really pointing at something that's um, probably the most alive issue for me in a spiritual sense, which is
Mm.
you're talking and actually laughing about, you know what you think you should do, and maybe you do it and maybe you don't.
Yeah,
I mean, there's kind of a heart and mind
yeah,
dance there.
yeah.
And I see our meetings as a chance for me to sort of
Hmm.
take the head of the Zazen retreat, put him
Yeah,
aside,
yeah.
and listen in a different way. So, this for me is what the opportunity
Mm,
um, that
mm,
our getting together represents. It's
mm. And maybe like this is the kind of spiritual practice, so maybe we know on one level, we hear our hearts and what our heart wants and where it's going, and even where the steps are, or even we know the first step or the first few steps. But because we're human, we have draws in different ways, like something else is drawing us here, there. And they're not just mental, they're energetic and all. And, if you're talking to a spiritual teacher, someone might say, well, you have to drop those and move on, like, and follow your heart. You can't just think you're going to follow your heart and not. Um, and of course, we can listen to that and say, yes, it's true. And it is true. But I feel it's really good and important to actually be with ourselves where we are. And that process also of being compassionate with ourselves where we are and being forgiving of ourselves when we didn't do the prayer or the meditation. Why is that not like that's spiritual practice? Because that's what needed to happen. We needed to feel the pull and we didn't do it. Like, and then maybe even like a feeling of feeling guilty or I don't know, whatever other kind of feelings you can have about it. But then like applying our actual heart to all of that, like applying our heart to all of our humanness, like that's maybe a better use of spirituality, because you're really drawn in to the nitty gritty. And some people might say, but the small things in life, not I don't know, small things, but are humans, and of course it would be ideal if we could go and pray on a mountaintop and be one with the Lord, and that's great. But like I don't know if the Lord even wants that, like why like compassion is coming from him and forgiveness is coming from him and being with you in the struggle is coming from him, so actually just in the very normal things in life we can really it's like being with God or embrace like letting him reach out to us. Of course, like it would be different if we're completely not aware of that part of us at all. That's a different thing. So then there's a different kind of practice, maybe, to at least feel like we need to feel that pull and feel that connect to our heart to be able to talk like that. Um, but I do think that's a good type of spirituality, you know. Um, and I think it's sometimes missed in spirituality. And maybe it's not missed, but it's misunderstood. I feel like it's misunderstood by our humanity and by some part of our minds, we misinterpret it. Like it's totally okay to be human and it's okay to be as we are because we didn't make ourselves as we are. This was a thought that was given to me like as a very young person. Like it's been with me a lot. But I actually think it's a great thought. It's like you didn't make yourself be as you are, like you with your personality, like you didn't choose this personality and all the good things and the bad things about it. You were just, it's just however you were raised or however you came in. There isn't a part of you that said, okay, this is what I'm going to be. Because if there was, we would probably make ourselves be totally different. Like perhaps many people would. Um, so in that way, then we didn't make ourselves be like that. So it kind of gets us off the hook in a sense, like like it's not our fault how we are.
You're you're
I don't know.
taking the you're helping me take the emphasis of I need to make a change,
Yeah,
and that's you're
yeah,
just coming from someplace else entirely.
yeah. That's
Mm,
what it is really. It's like trusting the process and
mm,
seeing yourself, like being your small self, seeing your human self and your personality, even with its struggles or not. And really, yeah, it's really that your heart is uniting with God here.
mm,
So it's not really
mm,
that you have to go and do lots of spiritual practice. Like that is the spiritual practice.
mm, mm,
That is it. But I do feel like when we do more focused spiritual practice that it helps us then, in to bring it into these moments. Like it doesn't, I mean, different things happen to every being, but it doesn't just happen by itself, So I feel like I'm able to think like that and feel like that and all because of this kind of pull and draw towards God and any spiritual practice, or really by grace, like it gets given to you, but it gets given to you through, like you were saying, this is kind of contradicting what I'm saying earlier, but like it gets kind of given to you when you do give yourself those times of rest and
mm,
prayer. And maybe you don't feel them in those times. You might sit down and say, okay, I'm going to pray. And you might light a candle or do whatever you do to create kind of nice space. Sit down, you might chant, say a prayer, whatever. There's loads of different ways of doing it. And then it might feel like nothing happened, so we can't really be doing it wanting something to happen.
yep.
But something does happen. And it's because like what you said, like that eye isn't really there. You're kind of in that ritual. You could call it a ritual. In that ritual, you're actually choosing to surrender your false sense of self or your ego identity, your I-ness. In that whole ritual, you're choosing to give that up for however amount of time. So that's really enough. And in that sense, I do feel like, and maybe I don't really know mentally, but there's a sense that something gets infused into your being,
Mm,
and then maybe it comes out later at a different time. Like maybe, you're able to be more patient with somebody who is very angry and stuff, you know.
mm.
Like I had a client yesterday, I worked doing massage, had a client yesterday and she turned up and she was very like grumpy. She was
Sorry, she was
very,
grumpy.
yeah,
Did you say grumpy? Okay.
grumpy. Yeah, she turned up and
And
she
you
was just,
were you giving her massage or were you giving her some form of talk?
I was giving her a
You were having
massage. I was giving
okay,
her a massage.
okay.
She was very grumpy. And you know, I think maybe I've always been somewhat patient with people like that. But like this is just an example. Like you need patience when you're dealing with people like that, because if you don't have patience, you might just snap back at them, or you might take it too personally, or you might any kind of. So I'm giving massage people or meeting people all the time. So if you work, many of our work situations, we're meeting people, isn't it?
Yeah,
So we can meet people who have different things going on, and then you can get in arguments with people if you don't have patience.
right.
So I definitely had to practice my patience. Like I felt a bit like kind of felt a bit like, why is she so grumpy? That just kind of sense, you're coming from the side or something. It was like, it's like so I was trying to like something was like understanding, trying to understand, I don't know what's going on with her, and like and also understand when you understand yourself more, you get to understand other people more. So I was kind of having the sense of like, okay, she's holding everything in this body, like more than like all her whatever happened with her ancestors and all, because all these things were holding energetically, so who knows why she probably might not even know herself why she's feeling like this, just overwhelmed. There was a sense that she was a bit overwhelmed. So it's just kind of trying to be patient. And that patience, I mean, I'm not saying I was perfect or anything, but like it can only come from God. It doesn't come from like an ego thing. An ego thing
Mm.
doesn't even want to be patient, probably. Or maybe some, I suppose there is a type of ego that wants to be patient as well.
Oh, I'm the most patient person
Yeah,
in the room.
of course. There must be that. So spiritual practice is good, and we do need to listen to our hearts and follow the steps. But when we don't follow what we're being guided to, we can also be forgiving and compassionate of ourselves, and that's part of the process. I
Mm,
think that's the message. This is really just like what I'm saying really reflects what happens in my being. And it's
mm.
a kind of like someone might listen and say, well, that's a bit, I don't know, being too easy on myself. But I mean, you have to be easy on yourself. I think it's better than being hard on yourself.
Well, I mean,
Mm.
you're there for your dad. It sounds like every day, every other day now.
Yeah,
Now that he's in hospital,
yeah,
I surely hope that you can appreciate how valuable it is to have a loved one near him.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you want to be assured that it's safe to let go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely not safe. Doesn't feel safe to let go at all.
Mm,
But we all have to let go in the end.
mm,
That's what I've been feeling like because he didn't practice during his life. He didn't
mm.
practice any type of surrender or anything like that, any spiritual practice that I'm aware of. So now you're kind of then forced into it at the end of your life. Or like when I'm
Mm,
looking at him, I feel like he's not forced because I don't think God forces. But in a way, it's a because you still don't have to do it. But he has a great opportunity, because he's lying in the bed, can't move, lying on his back day in, day out, can't even sit up, can't do anything,
oh,
can't eat, can't drink, can't do anything for like 9 weeks now. Yeah, it's a long time.
oh
So then
no.
what can you
Oh,
what can you do? Like it's nothing you can like practice surrender. And I did, I don't talk a lot of spiritual stuff there or anything, but of course little things slip out every now and again. So I did suggest, surrendering and just like in the sense of not even didn't even come out with like surrendering to God, but just surrendering to your pillow. Do you know what I mean? Like not having the sense of fighting. And then he was like, first he was like, yeah, yeah. Then after I said it again, he was like, oh no, no, surrendering means like giving up.
ah,
And I was like, well, I don't think it really does mean giving up, really. But even if it was, to give up. So then I was like, no, just relax. And then he thought I was basically saying just die there. He didn't
oh,
didn't take it too well in that moment.
mm,
But we have sometimes we get an opportunity at the end of our lives to surrender a bit more.
mm.
Mm. And like I do feel surrender feels better. Like you started with like rest. Rest is a type of surrender. So even, we can do it in just moments. So for example, like today I was dropped Eshon off at camp. Then I was on my way home and I had a few hours. So I wanted to make the most of my time. In my mind, there's loads of things I could be doing, different things. How will I use time? Then I was like, no, I'm just gonna sit here in the sun for a minute. And then you just forget about everything, just sit in the sun, take a rest. It's like it's like a moment of surrender. So even if it's just a few minutes, like yeah, that's like surrender. So I guess everybody does that sometimes. So whether we label it surrender. So even now if I'm thinking about like I think I know my dad's life, I don't really. I don't know my dad's life. Maybe he practiced surrender loads of times. He just doesn't talk about it in the way I talk about it,
Mm.
as well.
Well, I wondering if you're being exceptionally generous there.
I don't know. But I don't know. It's good to know. We don't really know. It's kind of good to know
Mm,
about, especially about other people. We don't really know what's going on with other people or what's the best. That's
yeah.
why like trust is
Mm.
Trust is good. I feel like trust is, if you had to pick one thing out of all of all of the, I don't know, you could call them spiritual ideas, even though there's some of them have reality to them, I suppose. But if you had to pick one thing, like I feel like trust is great. It's like
Mm.
trusting in God's plan. I like to feel like that. So like let his will be done. That's like trust. And it's kind of saying loads of things in one. It's like I don't know what needs to be done. Who am I to know? I don't know. You're doing everything anyway. You're the one doing everything. So like, and also trusting him is, you know, everything he's doing is for the greater good. Everything is linked in ways we don't know. Even when it's seemingly bad things, and things can seem seemingly bad in a moment. Like I feel like Jesus, when he was going to be getting crucified, and probably many other beings, in different points in time. But Jesus, when he was going to get crucified, like he knew it was going to happen and it seemed terrible, like, of course, like he's going to have to go through this whole crucifixion thing. All the people that he loves, first he's leaving them, then they're all going to suffer. And he probably, he was way more conscious than we are and way more attuned to the spirit probably than many of us here. So like he has a sense of what's coming on a bigger scale than just his own personal thing. So much suffering. And it's like, oh, this is hard. So the stories don't tell us that he accepted it graciously. Like, I mean, that's a bit harsh. Maybe he did accept it graciously, but like he felt the human suffering of it. Like this is hard. Like, do I have to go through this? No. But like he did it. And then he did accept, okay, like what I really want is just my father's will to be done. So that was there with him. And now it's like 2000 years later, and people are still uh grateful to grateful even that happened, that suffering thing happened to him. Because if that story didn't happen, like maybe we would have forgot him or something. Even if he was a great being when he was alive, maybe if that end didn't come, maybe somehow that stirred it up a bit more and made the story more what it is. So like 2000 years is, from this perspective, from a human perspective at least, is a very long time. So when we just trust in even like the worst things, and we can probably go in and out of it. So like Jesus did also in and out of it. How the story goes, if you follow it, it's like some moments like before he gets arrested, it's like he knows it's gonna happen and he's asking for it to be taken away from him. But then he's like, okay, but whatever is your will. And then again, when he's like on his way, like carrying the cross and all, sometimes he's surrendered and sometimes not. And then even on the cross when he's dying, sometimes it's like forwards and backwards, you know. Like so sometimes it seems like no, like this is too much. I don't want to, does this have to happen? But then it's like, okay, it's okay. So
When you
mm,
I don't mean to interrupt except to say that when you
mm,
mentioned trust initially, just a minute or two
mm,
ago, I felt an expansiveness. There's an
yeah.
expansiveness there. But let you continue.
No, that's all just trust. Like I think I started with saying like if there was one thing we could
Mm.
pick. I'm sure there's other things, but they're not in my awareness right now. I'm sure there's other great qualities and great things and ways to go, but I feel like to choose trust over every other spiritual idea we've thought of or every other spiritual practice. If it's a practice like then trust is going to, I don't know, carry us a long way and also give us peace and give us all the other things,
It
And of course,
suggests,
yeah,
well,
no,
I was going to say, it suggests relaxing,
yeah,
more expansive, loosening your
hmm
grip a little bit,
yeah, all of those things.
really just accepting that you can't control everything.
hmm Yeah,
It's great to say that out loud.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we can bring it into all the different moments of our life. So, like for me, like when someone is sick, and like you were saying, what's it like when you have to leave them? Like if you trust, you just leave them. You don't have to overthink about it. Sometimes we're trusting without thinking we're trusting. because if
mm,
you're not trusting, like then maybe you're like afraid and you're holding on too much and you're very stressed. But if you're just kind of trusting, then you're just kind of letting life flow. And then in other ways that we talked about, like, you're drawn to do, I plan, I'm going to do this spiritual practice, but then just got distracted and did something else. Also, I think we can also trust that, but not like overly. I think we can't be also too, like, there's a kind of a borderline. Like, I mean, we can trust that, but we should trust our hearts more, like where our heart's being pulled.
mm,
You know,
mm.
because there's nothing you can say really that's like 100% true. You know, whatever it is, even when you say the most beautiful thing. So it's like, what about this? Like, okay, fine. There's nothing you can say that's like perfectly true. That's the nature of being in this world of opposites. It's like the world of opposites. Nothing is 100%
Mm.
true, and like that's okay.
I feel like you've sort of voiced an answer to the question I think I brought to today's
Mm,
meeting, and it's very much, how can I hear my heart a little bit better? How can I
yeah.
listen a little more willingly? Trust is a good one,
Okay, so
but I
that's
want
the
to.
answer, is it? Trust.
Well, I want to give you a chance to expand on that if something else is coming.
Like for how to listen to the heart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's because it's two things, right? It's like
Mm,
the mind really wants to run things,
hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
it's sort of the proven formula, got me this far,
Yeah.
or at
Hmm.
least the idea that it got me this far is
Hmm.
there.
Yeah. Just like there is no one way really, so even though I'm saying like trust, it felt like that, and it can feel like that. But everyone, and not just everyone, but even within ourselves, we need different things at different times. Like so maybe in one moment we need trust, you know, and in another moment, see, because if you could just take that and apply it, then that's the answer for everything. But there is no answer for everything, except for like God is the answer for everything. But God is many things, you know. God has like so many qualities, so it's like which quality do we need right now? And to listen to the heart does mean that something in you and something in us recognizes that we need what's here in the heart. And what's here in the heart isn't something personal. And we know that. Like
Hmm.
even if we don't think about it, if we want to tune into our heart, it's not like my personal Amba heart and your personal Steve heart. It's something like universal, and it has a quality that's something that you can't describe. So, I call that God. Like I feel like God lives here in our heart, and how we can, because there is points, of course, I wouldn't have said that before, and I would have, if I could, let's say 20 years ago, if I could see my future self saying that, I'd be disgusted. Disgusting, literally disgusted with myself. It's like, what happened to her? Um, well, yeah, to listen to the heart but even at that time, there was something saying, peace and happiness is underneath everything else that's going on in our lives, and it's underneath, I suppose, means like at the core of our being, so at the core of our being, there's something peaceful. And how, see, there is no how. There's no how because what's how for you is not the how for someone else. So one person that I talk to, it depends on your personality, like, but she's very drawn towards nature, and flowers and, um, yeah, like, and she's quite creative. So for her, it's very good, I think, to spend time in nature.
Mm.
But for another person, like maybe it's better to, um, like think of a form of God, and speak directly, or there's just different things for different people. And for some people, maybe focus on the breath or anything that calms us down, really, and gets us out of our mind. And we all have a sense of that, I think.
One of the things that really does work for me, and I've proven it to be true certainly over the
Mhm.
last years, and even
Oh,
recently, is getting
could you wait?
really, sure, sure,
Sorry, my doorbell is ringing. Sorry for one
you
sec.
could go get it, yeah, yeah.
Dog food delivery.
Uh,
No, sorry, what were you saying?
what I was saying was that getting really, really still,
Mm-hmm.
like almost stone-like still, is
Mm-hmm.
really just kind of that's sort of for me, it's physically opening the door for things like trust, expansion,
Yeah.
calm to be there. And
Yeah.
I think to take that a little further, if I wanted to challenge myself, it would be, really accepting that doing that somehow in the face of chaos,
Mm-hmm.
someone's injured, someone's sick, someone needs help,
Mm-hmm.
to that's a good one. So normally I need the quiet room, a
Yeah.
timer,
Mm-hmm.
structure.
Yeah. And of course, it's very nice. It's very nice when we can give that to ourselves and when we can have it. And some people can
Yeah.
do it. Some people feel like they can't. Some people feel like they can't get very still. Like I've heard people saying, no, I've tried to meditate and can't do it. Of course they can do it. And but it also maybe for some people takes time. Some people it comes very quick and some it doesn't. So we just have to follow our own like so that feels good for you, so it's good to probably do it.
Mm,
But that
mm.
doesn't mean that you can't also be open to different forms of uh the divine speaking to you.
Well,
I'd
if
say.
you were to try and tell Ishan, if you want to be happy, you have to sit perfectly still and not move.
Yeah, no,
No, it's no.
no. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
But it's good also to sit still. Like I quite like to sit still and um just be still and be empty. Just yeah, like turn the attention back inward to what I call kind of I don't really call it that anymore, but in the beginning when I felt like I discovered it or something, it's like called it like nothing. Like there's something here that seems like nothing. It's like I'm so
mm,
interested in that nothing. So it's like turning your attention like back inwards, and it actually just makes you be really still because you have to be so still to be able to do it. I think I don't know if you could. Well, no, actually, you can definitely do it when you're still moving, but maybe at a certain point, you like in the beginning, maybe I don't know. Beginning, we're always at the beginning, so I'm not sure.
mm.
But yeah. The how is the answer is in our heart. So the question is like how to tune into the heart, but the answer is in the heart. And
Mm.
nobody else can really tell us the answer. We have to, it's like asking ourselves because our heart is like the core of ourselves, all of us, whether we're spiritually inclined or not spiritually inclined. It's like our heart is the core of ourselves. And if we just are very honest with ourselves, so it just means asking the question to ourselves and letting go of the question and be willing to hear the answer, then that's really listening to your heart,
Mm.
because it can sound kind of weird for people or what does it mean? It really means just being very honest with yourself and being willing to hear like maybe the smaller voice, not like the loudest things
Mm.
shouting in our head, but something that we just maybe have a small sense of. Or maybe you just have a small sense of, I think I should contact that person or
Mm.
something feels like I should just, you know, go to this place or take a walk or I don't know, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Like it could be anything. Because it's not always going to be the same answer. It's going to be different
Mm.
answers all the time.
Well, one of the things that's common here is
Mm.
after days of sitting quietly like Mika's
Mm.
doing. He's going to bring back a presence, a
Yeah.
real
Hmm.
amazing centeredness, and he's going to be ready to
Yeah.
share it with you. And so I hope you
Yeah.
can really
Yeah.
just, one of the things about being with Cornelia all these years is that we can just sort of melt.
Yeah.
It's just
Hmm.
delightful to, you don't have to do anything special. We can just sit quietly and
Yeah.
pick a
You've
show,
been
watch
together.
TV.
Yeah. You've been together with Cornelia like as long as I've been alive.
Well, I'm 64 in September, and
Hmm.
we were married within a month of me turning 21. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been together, what, 43 or 44 years?
I think it's 43 years in October.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I would joke with someone. It's not entirely true, but if they
Hmm.
ask me, well, how did you make it work? I would say, just give up.
Yeah. Yeah. Give up trying to
Give
make
up.
it work.
Give
Yeah.
up any sense of agency, any sense of
Yeah.
control, any opinions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's not entirely true, but I would
Yeah.
I would start out with, to lighten the atmosphere a little bit before it
Yeah.
got too dark.
Yeah. Hmm.
No, but clearly there's, mechanisms at
Hmm.
in play that sort of
Yeah.
keep it happy and friendly and light and loving and
Hmm.
kind. And
Hmm.
you know, it's beautiful. I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're reminding me of Papa G right now. Like you look like him. Just when you're laughing there, no hair. No, you never did before, and I've been looking at you many times. But right now, you're reminding me of Papa G a lot.
Oh, well, that's really cool. But he just, and this is, I'm sure, why Hahnemann loved him so much and why so
Hmm.
many thousands did, is he really
Hmm.
spoke with the voice of authority. And
Yeah.
that's something that I want to say that I'm getting from you somehow, even though you may not want
Hmm.
to acknowledge it, or you may
Hmm.
humbly might say that's not quite true. I'm really feeling like you're coming from a deep place, and it's just so beautiful.
Hmm. It's good. It's not my personal voice if there's anything there, at
Yeah, I
least.
get
So,
it.
yeah.
I get it. I get it. And I've missed our get-togethers. I know it's been
Yeah.
the whole time in Seattle. It didn't quite, with the 8-hour difference and the different things we had going, it didn't quite work.
Mm.
But what
Yeah.
what came up is, there's a house there with 3 bedrooms and a nice kitchen, and
Hmm.
we'd love someday, if it's possible, to host all 3 of you.
Oh, that
And
would be fun.
I know Seattle is a long way away, but there's a lot to
Hmm.
see. And
Yeah.
like Ireland, it's very, very green in the summer and spring and
Oh,
fall
nice.
even. So,
That could be good. I'm open to
yeah,
that.
right on,
Thank
right
you.
on.
So thank you for today. I really appreciate it. And yes, my being feels full of joy talking to you. You're full of joy.
Oh, that makes me happy too, then. That's great. That's great.
Okay, so let's be in touch about next time that we'll
Okay,
meet. Another
we'll
Friday,
do.
maybe next Friday. We'll be in touch.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to confirm early in the week then.
Yes.
Much love.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.